Cav, welcome to the show, man. Or I should say, welcome
Man,
back.
welcome back. It's a party. It's always a party if I'm in town.
It's always a party. So, your third time on the show, and it's so funny. I'm going to say this is going to come across as arrogant, but I don't mean it that way. People ask me
No,
all the time.
you definitely do mean it that way. Tell the truth.
It's
Tell the
definitely
truth.
that way. So people ask me all the time, how do I get on your show? Or they pitch me. I mean, I get pitched 40 to 50 times a day. And then there's people like you. It's now your third time on the show. And you continue to grow and evolve. And the reason I'm pointing that out is because the reality is, if you want to be seen, if you want to have powerful conversations with powerful people, if you want to continue to level up in your life, you yourself have to evolve. You yourself have to grow. And that's why you're here a third time. It's not only our friendship that we've built over the last 7 years, I believe. Like, actually, I think it came up in my time hop yesterday. I took a picture of you on Gary Vee's show like 7 years ago, and it's still in my phone. So it comes up every year. But dude, the growth that you've had as a person, as a leader, as a coach has been insane, specifically over the last 2 to 3 years, even more so. So talk a little bit about who is Cav today. And then I want to break down what happened and how we got there and why we're having this third conversation.
Well, I appreciate that. I think, like, look, man, it's the hat trick, right? It's got to be good. Hopefully, this is the one that everyone gets excited about. But when it comes to growth, I think, look, I feel like I've been at the same speed, since day one. I don't think I've like changed in that end. I just think I've made smarter moves because I've made mistakes, and those mistakes have kind of aligned me to not like it's your job as you mature is to not make the same mistakes over and over again, right? And it says, a smart man learns from their mistake, but a wise man learns from others. I've had a lot of others in my life when I was growing up, so I accelerated pretty quickly. I'm a big believer of environment always wins. So constantly finding myself, forcing myself, and creating an environment that is a successful, space for me to thrive in. One not so where I'm like always going to be on top, but one that's creating an opportunity for growth. So sometimes I need to be in an environment of pressure. Sometimes I need to be in an environment of support. But all of those environments are ones in which, in the current state of my life, wherever I am personally or professionally, it's basically allowing me to kind of go to where I want to go. And it's just because I have this vision for where I want to be. But I'm also accepting the fact that the actual prize is the journey. And I'm willing to kind of accept that, hey, here's where I am today. I know where I'm going to be. It's not even a question on if I'm going to be there or not. It's just that a matter of when. But I don't, I think there's a lot of people that ask the question like, hey, would you give everything up to be, a kid again? Would you be everything up to go back to be when you're, in your 20s or be 17? I wouldn't. And the reason for that is I know that if I knew any of the stuff that I know today, I wouldn't have met my wife. I probably wouldn't have had my son. And it's because the decisions that led me to that point have, there were some peaks and valleys, right? And there's the pits of those days and peaks of those days. And you got to learn to enjoy those pits because if not, you're just so high, you end up getting high and you kind of get disassociated from reality. And I think that I'm very blessed because I went through some of those, moments. And where I am today is I'm just an older, more mature version of the values and habits that I've put in place many, many years ago.
Yeah, it's like stacking that foundation, right? Like, it's so funny because, like, I think from the outside, if people were to look at you, be like, whoa, he's really turned on the jets. But your first response was, well, no, I've kind of been at the same pace, but it's that compound effect of daily action that has gotten you to this place. Now, you mentioned something about environment, and you said there are certain times where I feel like I need to be the person at the top. And then there's certain times where I need the pressure and the accountability and those people that can push me to be better. How do you know when to be where? Because I think too many people use the line, I never want to be the smartest person in the room, because I think there's power in sometimes being the smartest person in the room.
Absolutely. I want to be the smartest person in the room, just not all the time.
Yeah.
It's very similar to like training. I work in the sports performance world. I work in the high performance world with, businesses and people that are aspiring for massive impact. And I think that the kind of interesting thing about that is like pressure burst pipes. So you got to put pressure on it. And what you do in order to kind of solve problems as you find like the tightest restraint, and then slow things down to the tightest restraint, and then expand that, and then grow. So I actually like, putting pressure on myself, and I like also being the smartest person in the room, because it's the balance between those things that really, really matters. So coaching or leadership is the balance between, deep, honest candor and care. And in order for me to have that, I got to be in a room where like I could lead, I could show up, but then also I have to understand how to follow, right? I have to be I got to go back to the student, and then I got to be in the teacher role. And like a good leader, a good student is one in which that knows the perspective of both sides. And you're always going to be having a blind spot in the work that you do. So like my job as a coach is to kind of be, see the parallax, right? It's like you look at one thing and it's round, and then you turn it, it's a square. They're both are true, but just from different angles. So I need to be in environments where they're at different angles. What it also does is it lets people know that it's not always about me. So if I'm in a room that I'm the centerpiece constantly, I won't be invited into a room that I potentially could be the centerpiece in one day, because they're going to always basically say like, oh, well, he only wants to be the keynote speaker. He only wants to be, the host of the event. So then I'll never get opportunities because people won't even think about me that way. And maybe it's a perfect fit. So it's like opening myself up to be, someone inside, the seats. One of the things that I did for years is I ran events, and as I ran events, what I would do to filter out the speakers is I would go to the event that they were speaking at. I would just be a student. I would sit down in the audience, watch them, find out if there's depth to them. See, you mentioned, hey, it's my third time on the show. You know this because we've had conversations. Most of our life is spent off recording, right? Yeah. It's not when that red button's on. Most of our life is spent when we're actually together, we're hanging out, we're having good conversations, or we're in business, or we're pouring into people into your mastermind, or we're pouring people into kind of our family lives of what's going on and what really matters to us. And in those moments, we get to go deep. And the reason why that people don't get that opportunity to be repeat guests, or the people that don't get opportunities to be invited back. I just came back from Amsterdam and in Italy, speaking at an event that it was my second talk, and they've put on 7 events and they've never had repeat speakers. And they said, we don't want to bring back the same speakers. They were very kind of proud of that as an event for many years, because they brought in some of the best people from all around the globe. And I was invited back because the conversation outside of that 1 hour or 2 hour talk got deeper and deeper and deeper with them. And then they wanted more. And they're like, hey, you're not just a one-trick pony. You have the ability to do multiple things and do it at a high level. And it's because there's depth to the work that I do. And when there's depth to the work that you do, you're going to get invited back. If not, you might as well just have that poster, and then you're just going to go like, oh, it's, it's this one movie, and then, hey, it's Home Alone 2. We know what happens. It's just Home Alone 3. So you're the same thing, and it's just the same storyline. And somewhere, somehow, Kevin got forgotten again. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to just be a 1 and a 2. I want my story to evolve and for me to grow and to be, kind of the hero of the journey, and then go into the guide, and then move into potentially into, unfortunately, the evil person at some point in my life, right? And I understand that there's a different place of where I am in the journey, and my job is to kind of live that character and be kind of accepted of the fact that I'm not going to be repeating the same thing over and over again. And in order to do that, I have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's so funny you talk about, speaking at this event and then spending time and going deeper with people, whether it's the people who put together the event, people who attended the event. That is a piece that so many speakers miss, that I think people need to pay attention to, is like, your 45 minutes or whatever on stage. Yes, that's important. But the most important part is that one-on-one time, that small group time, hanging around. Like, how many times have you seen a speaker show up, speak, and then leave? And then nothing comes of it. You never see that person again. Like, how powerful is it for you to stick around and play on the same level as everybody else there for the remainder of the weekend or the week or whatever it is, and build those strong relationships? What has that done for you long term?
It's made a massive impact because it's free ticket to information. But if you're not willing to do that, and I think here's the thing that is important to understand. earlier part of your career when you're presenting, you pretty much do not want to have any new information come into your head before you get on stage, because you're thinking constantly about your talk. You're really like, how do I present? How do I show up? What happens if people find out that I'm actually nervous? Or what happens if people find out that, I'm going to be presenting? What happens if I like drop a hint to what my joke is and then it doesn't land? And I think the key is when you're young in the coaching or speaking space, when you get on stage, you pretty much want to create this kind of vacuum around you so that nobody comes in. But if you keep that up for too long, then what happens is you pollute your own air. You're going to pollute the environment in which you're living in, and you're going to be the reason why you become toxic, because you start believing everything that you say, and then you don't get away from it. So for instance, this is very, very big in the coaching space, where coaches or people that are technicians, they are skilled and they reach a certain level, and then they go, ooh, I could have more fun teaching this to everybody. So I'm going to become now the coach to coaches, or I'm going to be the teacher of teachers. And I'm going to present on other people that want to do this skill. And I'm going to be the master at this. And you guys are going to all learn from me because I know it best. And what ends up happening is you get so far removed from the work that you lose kind of your humility. Like, you got to have, boots on the ground, hand in the dirt at some point. If you're not still coaching, if you're not still doing your work, you're going to lose that, right? I got bumped to 501 because some douchebag chef, right, happened to be 500, which is straight crap, right? And it's like two foreheads wanted to collide and actually wanted to support each other. That's all you do. That's the reason why you did it.
I was thinking when I was interviewing, I'm like, we have the same head shape.
Yeah,
like the exact same head shape.
Yeah, you just look like a thumb. It's a big thumb. So, but for those that don't know, you have one of like a world-renowned chef in Fabio Viviani. Let me tell you something. Fabio could cook. Yeah, he's funny. Yeah, he's hysterical. Yes, he's great at educating on like where things come from, and with a great personality. Is he an awesome dude? Absolutely. But the fucking dude could cook. Like, at the end of the day, I don't want to eat shit food.
Yeah.
It might look pretty, it might be amazing service, the hospitality fantastic, but like if the food isn't good, man, there's only so much kind of white glove approach that's going to overcome bad food. His food is great. And at the end of the day, it's like, that's what he wants to be known for. All of the other stuff is just for the magazines and the awards and for the, the stickers, right? And for the reviews. But the reality of it is if the food's bad, we have a problem. And he still cooks. So as a coach, I still coach. I'm getting into, we finished Tokyo with 3 golds and 2 silvers. I'm getting ready right now for Paris 2024, which will be my 6th Olympics. I'm in year 21 as a professional coach at the NFL level, working thousands of kids through, college over the years. I'm still coaching. And because I'm still coaching, there's a level of humility because we don't always win. There's a level of like reality check because it's still tough. And I fight some of those same political and stupid battles that I have to, because unfortunately, like you're gonna never graduate from that stuff. But at the end of the day, I also am backing up and I'm still guiding other people along that path. And I have a little bit more perspective because I've done it for so long. But I'm not losing kind of the essence of who I am, which at the core of it is a coach.
Yeah, dude. And one thing that I admire about you, well, a couple things. One is your ability to read the room. And number 2, your ability to find your place in the room, meaning like you will coach 24/7. Like you can tell that is your passion. It is what you love. Now you've been able to expand and grow massive business outside of just sports coaching. You help CEOs, you help, entrepreneurs, you help so many different types of people. But to understand that you keep going back to your passion instead of fully changing who you are, right? I think we get lost sometimes in the entrepreneur space of trying to chase the next thing, be the next thing. How do you, as you evolve your businesses, as you evolve everything you're doing, how do you continue to check yourself and go, no, I'm still this person. I'm still this coach. I'm still the X's and O's.
Well, the talk that I gave at your live event years ago was about like understanding that if you're a boat and you're traveling this waters, the job is the, we say like the ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not where they're meant to be. Like they're meant to be out there and exploring. And if you're exploring, you have to have lighthouses in your life as you pass through the channel. Lighthouses. So you have a lighthouse in your life for finance, right? So I have somebody on the wealth side that helps me understand financial, strategies. He's my financial advisor, right? And that guy keeps me away from the rocks as the boat slowly kind of goes into a wrong path. His job is to protect me from that land. And then I keep passing by, right? And maybe there's a health coach, right? There's somebody in my life. This person happens to be Dr. Eric Serrano. His job is to keep me healthy, right? And as I kind of unfortunately, waver away and drift a little bit in the wrong direction, I get too close to the rocks. His job as a lighthouse is to remind me, hey, you're getting a little close, moving past it, right? And then as I keep, going down the line, there's kind of like this integrity test. Like, well, who is that value set for me? And that's my wife. Every time I come home from, work or from wherever I am, it's hey, how did you show up today? What type of man are you today? Because there's going to be, if there's a little bit of if there's a dissegregation or a separation of my alignments of my actions and my ambitions and the things that I'm saying, then there's a problem. And she's going to constantly keep me in check. So I believe that, in a world where everybody wants to be in the same room, I think that you want to stand on the shoulders of giants. And the way that you do that is you want to move past your mentors. So you're constantly moving. You don't need all of those people at all times in your life. Because imagine if you had kind of all of your integrity checks of each different area of your life in the same room, just kind of hitting at you. It's not fun. So it's as you run into problems, their job is to protect you. So that's the one way I stay grounded. You brought up another point that I think is super valuable and regarding my skill set of like reading the room. I am known in the coaching space at a high level for my coaching eye, the ability to see things that nobody sees and do it at full speed. So when I teach speed, I teach it in a static position. So like if I took a picture and a freeze frame, how would someone look, and making sure that, all parts are in anatomically correct positions for, the way the body's supposed to move. Super slow. So like slow speed. So if I'm watching it in slow motion, what does that look like? And are they going through the right actions, and is everything in the right positions? Because body craves anatomical truths. And then speed, full speed. So if I watch something in full speed, and yeah, I work with sprinters, so I see things that are moving really, really fast. And, when you look at things in real time, it kind of plays tricks on you. So you have to do it in different components and then change your perspective. But I've been able to kind of leverage that in other areas of my life by watching the room and seeing these small little nuances of personality traits and insecurities that people have, and kind of like pointing them out and then realizing, oh, that is their truth, right? So with that, what's interesting is I find that the two most like athletes that have two traits to be the most successful is, number one, they have to have a high level of self-awareness. They need to know who they are. And then number two, they need to know what their role is. So you could be very successful in pro sports if you know who you are and you know your role. But what happens is if I walk into an NFL locker room, and again, let's talk about in my peak career, and I was a 5-sport athlete, I was an All-American, I had a lot of success. But if I walk into an NFL locker room and I act like I'm that guy, I'm going to lose all respect, and I'm going to get my ass handed to me quite quickly, because there's levels to this game. No matter what anyone says, and I had a lot of success in my playing career. I had a lot of success, even in coaching. I understand that there's levels to it. And if I walk around like I know everything, if I belong, I may belong, and I might have to have that confidence when I show up to play. But if I don't have a reality check, I'm going to get eaten alive. So you have to, number one, know who you are. And then number two, you have to know what your role is. And not everyone does that. And what happens is when they kind of step out of bounds, they're going to get put in check. And either they're going to get put in check, and then maybe you step up and that elevates you or it humbles you potentially, or you get put in check and then you get out the door. Because people will not last long if you don't know you don't know your surroundings. And if you don't know who you are and you act a certain way, you're not going to get invited back to those environments. So it's the same thing in business. So if my concept of like teaching the same strategies and tactics that put athletes on the podium with executives in the boardroom, because people are high performers, and the high performance traits are very consistent no matter what you're doing. It's just the skill difference. All I'm trying to do is have a high level of self-awareness and understand what what your role is in the room. So as a CEO, I have a specific role. I have to show up, like have a vision for everybody in the company to be attached to and have pride of where they're going. I have to be able to share a plan that is very clear so people know that they're not so disconnected from this vision where it's like so abstract. We got to get at least granular to the point where people could get connected to it and understand that the work that they do is important and impactful enough to where they feel validated to showing up every day. If not, it's like too big. It's like, oh, this guy just has this kind of granular vision, but it's like so delusional because I have to put my head down and do all this work and then not appreciate it. So all you're doing is you're connecting those dots at the right time. And it doesn't matter what that role is regarding, like, being a coach, being a CEO, being an advisor, being a consultant. All what matters is know who you are and know and where your place is in that room. So I'll go to your event. You brought me in that environment to present. I'm going to present, but also what I'm going to do is see if I could help and support other people in that room so that it makes their experience better. We have now a mutual friend who I knew online, but never knew in person. Right. And I bought his programs. I've been in his groups, and he's an audience member. He's not presenting. And somebody was talking as an expert in your environment, which they absolutely were. But then I looked over, I go, oh my God, that's that guy. He's ran one of the most successful Facebook groups in business that I know. He knows this topic inside and out, and he humbly, offered his advice. But without anybody knowing who he was, he understood that he could add some value. He wasn't trying to be like, hey, look at me. And it was interesting. It wasn't received by everybody to be like, oh, that guy is like the best in the world at doing this, because he didn't have the stage yet. And then once they found out who it was, they were like, oh, crap. And for me, I knew who it was. And I was like, dude, that's some really good information, because you don't realize what he's done, right? You don't realize like the fact that he's serving a 2-comma market and doing really, really well. So sometimes you don't know who's in the room. So you have to just be open-minded. And then you have to know your place. So I find that it works in both areas. It works in sports and it works in business.
Yeah, dude. And it's so true. Like, you really taught me that really early on in our friendship, of like understanding you don't know who's in the room. Like, you don't know who's sitting next to you. You don't know any of that stuff. And that's actually something that I've purposely curated as I've gone about doing my events, and making sure the right people are in the room, even though you might not know it, right? Like, there may be some whispers of Justin doing another bigger event in 2024. I don't know yet. I was talking in third person, not you, Justin, me, Justin. And there are people that will come that have a literal, 7 million followers on TikTok. And you're not going to know who's sitting next to you when they're sitting in the room, right? And unless you follow him by chance. But I'm purposely having these people come to hang out, because it changes the dynamics of the room when you have smart people in there. And that's really what we've been talking about, is like, if you want to evolve and grow, get in the right rooms, surround yourself with the right people, ask the right questions, and do those types of things. Now, it's so funny. You're talking about skill set and your role and understanding that. I kept thinking about the 1990 Bulls, right? You got Jordan, Pippen, Rodman at the core, and then the guys around them. Like, if Rodman went out there and tried to be Jordan, they wouldn't have won all those championships. It worked because they understood the roles that they played. I'm bringing this up because how do you, as a coach, working with CEOs and organizations, also working with athletes, how do you help guide somebody to actually understand their role versus the role they want to play? Because everybody wants to be Jordan. You just have to acknowledge when you're not and find your role. So how do you have that conversation?
Yeah, in order to be the GOAT, you have to have a high level of self-awareness. And I think everyone should try to be. Like, everyone should be MJ, but be, second and satisfied if you're Pippen. Because you understand that, do you get those rings without them? Right? You got to understand that. And that's like, hey, I want to surround myself. So for instance, in my teams, I don't hire anyone. And if you've been around me for, any amount of time, you'll know all of the employees or people that work with me are all my teammates. Nobody looks or acts like me. And they're all different, not visually, but like personality wise. Like, they're from all over the world. They have completely different backgrounds. They offer something completely different to the business or into the environment, because I am trying to kind of augment with the areas with people that are stronger in an area that I'm weak. I am not trying to have yes men around me. Because if I constantly surround myself with yes men, then it's just the Coach Cav show. And it's just constantly, I'm just getting people that are appeasing to me. And I need to have a level of challenge. I like conflict. It's something that I think that conflict is the fastest way to truth.
Mm.
And it's the easiest thing for me to kind of find out how authentic you are and how deep we could go. Because if you crumble in the early signs of conflict, how are you going to how are you going to actually handle when the conflict is actually true and the conflict is going to stay there? So helping somebody kind of find who they are is this short doses of conflict management. It's creating a level of fear and finding out which way they go. Like, the acronyms of like, are you going to, run, or are you going to, step up and rise up? Which one are you going to do? But really what happens when you have these moments, they call it like the flight or flight response. There's a third moment that people do not account for, and it's that moment of freeze. And the people that are the most used to conflict, that area of freeze, because that's the first thing that happens, right? Before you make the decision of fight or flight, you have this moment of freeze. And the people that are the most confident and the most comfortable in tough conversations, tough situations, violent environments, that moment of freeze is collapsed. It's a shorter window. And that allows you to make decisions. And when those things are shorter, you're now basically you're not staying still long. You're moving quick. And when you have targets that are coming at you in your life, whether it be in sports or whether it be in business, people are, aiming for you. It's a lot easier to hit a stationary target than a moving one. So if you stay moving, it becomes really, really difficult for you to hit. But if you stay in the same place because you're frozen in decision, right? If you're frozen in decision and you don't move, you're going to be an easy target. So the best way to do that is to create constant conflict with that person to say, hey, like, if you don't like getting hit, you need to move. And we find out where they move to. And if they constantly are moving into the wrong areas, then we got to give them more confidence to make better decisions. But I think the two things that entrepreneurs, leaders, and executives don't do really well is, number one, they don't make decisions well. And number two, they don't prioritize them well. So you have a list of things that you have to do. Are they in priority order? And then number one being, are you making decisions on them regularly that are in the right path of short-term, medium-term, and long-term for yourself and for the business?
Dude, I love it. So you're talking about conflict and things that arise, whether it's between two people, whether it's, something in the world that causes conflict within your business. And I've been wanting to get to this point of how much you've shifted your focus. I don't want to necessarily say your business, because you're still a coach, but you've shifted your focus in how you deliver what you do due to, the pandemic, right? You owned a gym, you coach young athletes, you help them get to the next level, while still helping people in the NFL and doing those types of things. But I feel like COVID hit, which was your moment of conflict. What do I do? Right? I have this gym that people can't come and work out anymore. They can't train with me. They can't come do this stuff. And then you had a moment, right? I'm sure you paused. What happened in that pause for you to now build something even bigger and more impactful with what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I'll actually work backwards a little bit. So a year before that hit, we had a massive issue in our business that someone else that had no bearing on like our decision, somebody completely outside of that, did something that caused, the business to make a massive, change.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring that up. I didn't know where we were with talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is at this point, right? And I think I've actually had more followers and fans and support from people that knew about that and watched me show up as a leader. Whereas that's one of the things that once the pandemic hit, people were attracted to me because they watched me go through conflict and the conflict resolution, the way I handled it. And they said, hey, I watched you from a distance go through this shitstorm, and the way that you handled it is somebody that I want to kind of be around. So I actually got a bigger audience because they watched this really bad place that I was in. But basically, I had somebody in my business that did something really, really dumb, and it cost me $1 million overnight. Like I literally lost $1 million overnight, changed everything in my business, but it also changed my perception. I thought I I thought most people would say Cav's not a very naive person. You've been around me, you know that I kind of grew up in an environment where you don't have the luxury of being naive. You got to move because there's just a little bit of danger and there's a little bit of speed associated with those decisions. And I was very naive. I didn't realize that people brains, would be as not just ignorant, but really, really dumb. And it was also, my negativity was attached to the fact that my values don't allow me to think like that. And I'm not around environments that are like that. And that's what probably had, this kind of this almost vacuum or echo chamber where I wasn't thinking like like other people. Which I think is always interesting. Like if you think like criminals, you start to see things, better than other people because you just, you don't think people would do those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lost $1 million overnight, and that was over a year before, and we rebuilt it back up. And so I was already positioned with a level of protection that most people weren't when that hit. So once, the pandemic hit, and I got a little bit of a lucky strike. So Tanya met with me and she goes, "Hey," so I had a building for about 10 years, and it was, a very large facility. We had a lease that we negotiated, which was to double the building, like double the size of the building, expand, and another 10-year on the lease. And, Tanya, who rarely gets involved in my business decisions, says, "Hey, I think we should talk about this. 10 years is a long time. You already have, a lot going on. You're getting ready for your next Olympics. Like there's so many opportunities. You're speaking all around the world. Like we should probably talk about this because you got so much going on." And we had already we're building this kind of high performance center just for our pros anyways, and our executives, because it was like, we're trying to pull away a little bit from the environment because we had, thousands of people that were going through the bigger building. And so we go to lunch on a Thursday and we sit down and she goes, "I don't know what's going on, but I think we should take a look at this because you got 10 more years. That's a long time, and you should probably think about if you want to do this for another 10 years. You sign this lease and it's multiple millions of dollars over the course of 10 years. Do you really want to do that?" And I'd never really thought about it because it's just what I do. Like, this is the business that I have. It's just growing and we're just going to keep doing it. So I never thought to even give it a real honest look on, do I want to change? And I did. I said, "Okay, this is a good conversation. I'll tell the landlord and the broker that instead of Friday, we'll punt the conversation to Monday and we'll talk about it over this weekend." Well, Sunday, Trump announced national emergency and then the world shut down. So yeah, we lost 3 months of rent and it was a headache, and we lost a very successful business to that, but it positioned us to not lose many $million, right? It positioned us to have a lot of success. And the first person I called actually was Fabio. I don't know if I told you this, but like the first person I called was like, "Hey, if there's anybody that understands conflict and how to handle these crisis moments, is somebody in the restaurant industry." Yeah. So I reached out to him, and with as much shit that he had going on, the fact that he picked up a phone and we just kind of talked, and we had a good we we were able to rant to each other. Sometimes you need people like that in your life. And also just like, kudos to him. You watch the way he showed up for, hundreds of employees that he has, and the way he handled, the people that he's trying to retire and his families made me, pretty strong in my will to do the same for the small group of people that I had. But we took a business like that. And because people had seen me a year prior, the way I handled that as a leader, they were like, "Hey, the way that you showed up in this crisis, now we're going to listen to you in this crisis." And then I was ahead of the curve. I was 5-6 steps ahead of everybody. Anybody that was, we have a mastermind that we've ran for, over 8 years now. Anybody that was in our group had either doubled or almost tripled their business during the pandemic, which is crazy when you think about people who are just shutting down. And I told them, I said, "Hey guys, if you like, hold your breath, I will give you your tank. I will give you you're underwater right now. I will give you your scuba tank. But if you hold your breath and you do this the right way, I promise you, your day is going to come out on top." And they all did. And I was very proud of that, because I think that, and a lot of times when this stuff happens, leaders are not leaders. They're just in a position of authority, but they have no power to help you. They're actually, they're just figureheads. And you watch that happen. There's a lot of people that are like, Mr. Tough Guy and I'm a badass or whatever. And then when this shit happens, they turn into fucking, pussies. So there's your PG show. But and that's just the reality of it. The reality of it is these people traditionally crumble under conflict. And because of, I've gone through it before. I've been pressure tested. This is something that I'm pretty, used to. And going back to why was I in a position to do this is I was pretty much prepared for this my entire life. My dad's a firefighter. You don't have a choice. You run into a building, you make a decision, and you're not going to try to go home and say, I dropped the ball on that one. Well, that's somebody's life. But it's actually not just somebody's life. It's somebody's family. It's someone's mom. It's someone's dad. It's someone's kid. So these are different conversations when you have that level of severity. So I watched it like that. So I started making decisions as if it was the same level of severity, even though it wasn't. Like we're in business, right? It's like no one's living or dying. And when you take that frame of reference, you start to be more conscious around those decisions. And you genuinely care about people because you go, man, like, how can I be there for somebody? What's going on? Like, how do I support them? It's really, really easy just to kind of be like, all right, I got this much money, and you just like jump on it and you hold on to it and you say, hey, I'm going to protect myself and my family, and then the rest of everybody, screw them. And, I'm just not in on that. That's just not my style. My style is to basically bring everybody else with me. I am a big believer of rising tide lifts all ships. And I think our job is to take those boats and build them up. And I imagine like where you could go when you do that. So I was positioned for success before the pandemic. Post the pandemic, what had happened was I'm now in a place to where people are now seeking me out for guidance that are on the executive level because they watched me handle this publicly with a big, big light on me. And they watched the way I showed up and they say, how are you able to do that? And I say, well, at the depth of what we do, right? At the top of what we do, at the surface level, people come to me for the results. They see that I'm the best in the world. They see that we win our gold medals. They see that we win our titles. At the next level, it's like we're building relationships with the people that we do. But at the depth of what we do, we build resiliency. We build resiliency by first off giving a prescription of what to do when they're in a problem situation. We're building protection around the environment that they're in order to kind of care for external factors. And then we're positioning them for success long term. So when people come to us, that's how we are able to kind of talk to them and make decisions. And we were able to do that because we're building resiliency in the business model. We're building resiliency with the relationships. And if the results are easy, everyone's going to come to you because you get good results. The problem is if you don't get results, don't expect people to come your way. But if you do get results, what's separating you from everyone else? What's the relationship? And then now if you have a good relationship with one person versus the other person, what's the next level? It's the resiliency that you'll have.
Yeah. It's so great that you share that. And I'll say this, I've spoken to your mastermind a couple of times, never in a cool place like Vegas, still waiting for the invite. But I then, just recently back in August spoke at the super coach summit that you did with Coach Catalyst. And to see the people that are in your mastermind now post the nightmare of seeing so many gyms specifically shut down, they were such in a good place. Continuing to run their businesses, and their energy was just so different. How they approached everything, like that really forged your mastermind. And kudos to you for leading them through that time, because not many people can say that post pandemic, right? Like I lost 70% of my income the second COVID hit. And the reason I didn't panic is because I have friends like you and Fabio who had much larger problems than I did at that time, right? But to pay attention and ask questions and navigate, that's how you really figure this whole thing out, man. So kudos to you for stepping up in that way, because not many people did.
That. And not to mention, like you did keynote the event. And the coolest part about the event was how you were prepared for your talk. And as I went to go to the bathroom right before your talk, I said, you know what? I don't want you to talk about that. Talk about this. That's what they need to hear. And they're like, what? Okay. And then you did it. And the reason why I had the confidence in you, Justin, is not because I knew you're a good speaker. It's not because you're flexible and you had that ability to be agile with the topic. Is because at the core of who you are, you live that talk. So it's easy for me to say, go talk about this that you're not actually prepared for when it comes to mentally knowing that that's what you're going to talk about, but your life has prepared you for it.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as a good or a bad opportunity. It's the preparation for that opportunity that matters. And you'd prepared for that talk for a long time, even though I'd hired you and I brought you in to present to everybody on a completely different subject. And I said, you know what, as I read the room, I said, Justin, they want to go deeper. Like these guys, they like your other talk was very tactical and it was very specific and it could create a lot of value from the business standpoint. But these people are craving to go deeper. Go give that talk. And you crushed it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, all right, we'll see. We'll figure this out as we go. But I think for me too, because I speak often enough that it now says I'm a speaker in my bio. It took me a couple years to get there, but it does say that now for the last couple years. But I will say, like, when you challenge me in that way, no matter what your thought process was, the reason I consider you my bruiser as I talk about the 5 people is like those small challenges prove to me that I am continuing to get to the next level, that I could go do that and execute and, be stopped by so many people afterwards. I'm like, I just need a breather. Like, let me get out of the hallway. But it was my honor to speak at that event. I mean, it was filled with a ton of great people. I've stayed connected with a lot of them. Jeb is one of the coolest people, by the way.
Do you know he used to, first of all, he great tattoos. Second,
Yeah.
heck of a dude on the guitar. Do you know what he used to do?
I don't remember.
He was a hairdresser in New York.
That's right. Yeah,
he was a hairdresser in New York. And this is like a bald, jack dude that's working on people's emotional eating patterns. And this guy was a hairdresser in New York. And I'm like, man, he is absolutely one of the coolest dudes I know. And he's a real dude. And, and he's a hell of a jiu-jitsu competitor and fighter. So there's, again, a lot of the people that I'm around, there's depth to them, and if I really want to talk about that, there's just depth to them. And you talk early on and how we came, into this conversation around change and growth. We just acquired a company in August that is in Australia. And, we're building and growing that. And it's an opportunity for me to grow and step into that role because tell you what, like, you buy a business, and I've been able to do this with a good friend of mine that oh man, like I'm just so blessed in the fact that we're, working together on something because, he works just as hard as I do. We are polar opposites. So like, there's a lot of like synergy within the relationship. There's a lot of checks and balances. Like I want to work for him and his family, and I see the big picture. And I know that this is just the beginning. This isn't, the end, this is just the beginning. But what's also really cool is, we adopted almost a business that the systems probably, we're going to go in there and make some adjustments because of what we're used to doing. But man, the people are amazing. And that says a lot to the person that was there before that was leading the business, that he empowered those people to grow and gave them an opportunity. And now they're stepping up. So it says things about 2 parts of it. It says something about the leader, that the leader is great at actually building internal leaders and they're great at, in developing people. And I believe you had Cody on the podcast before,
yeah, it was
right?
A great,
and so
great episode.
he's gone on to build an amazing offshore, company called WorkPod, which you could actually work, with people. And then they have an office, but they're your employees and it's unbelievable. But we acquired his first business, called Sites at Scale. And it's grown tremendously, and it's an amazing opportunity for me now because it's a significant challenge. But there's a lot of it's like a yin and a yang. Like what Cody brought to the table is already built and what's there, which is great. But him and I are very different personalities and different leaders, so it's a challenge for me to kind of like connect those things. However, that challenge is a way for me to grow, and it's a challenge probably for the business to grow. But it's also like a testament to the fact that he's very, very good at something, and it helped probably, and now it's perfect, because the people are almost already built. And then it's also a reality that the people there are willing to grow, and they're stepping into those roles, and they're incredible people. I was just so impressed, and I am continuously impressed based upon them being willing to kind of handle not just my personality, but the challenge of the business. And as you can imagine, just personality wise, there's massive differences, but I think that there's a huge benefit of he's gotten to them to this point. And for me, it's like, I don't know if I could have done that. I don't know if I would have been great in the earlier stages of those relationships, because he built something for almost a decade. And I could imagine like, hey, day one, I don't know if I had that skill. So sometimes it's like recognizing that that's not my strength. And then that's how I grow, is like being very aware of and I don't think I would have been able to do that. So I'm very, I have a lot of gratitude towards it, but it's also a challenge now to keep it going and take it to the level that I want to take it to, which is global. And, the business is, going to be doing great as we enter into 2024. It allows me now to take this into the global market, into the US, which is building websites and backend systems and dominating people's marketing, so that we can help them with, them do what they do best, which is just the skill of their work. But what's really, really cool about it is I get to coach still, but I get to coach in a different frame of, just a different framework. So I'm still being me. It's just the skill is different. It's not running, it's not lifting, it's not, sport. It's the sport of business, and it's still the sport of people. So I'm still doing that every single day. And there's massive challenges with that. And, I don't think people are as simple as a personality type. I think they're a lot more complicated to that. And then you have to kind of give them credit for the fact that they're trying to, and they're going through stuff. And I'm looking forward to these challenges, because now this business and some of the other stuff that I'm doing is giving me the opportunity to still, coach my athletes. We're going to get ready for Paris 2024. And I'm still going to, we're in the middle of the NFL season. So I'm still doing that. And it's like, you're growing. And if you're not growing, then what's the point? And just like Cody's business has now grown to where I think he has $1 billion company on his hands, because he's literally changing the landscape for like supporting a community and quality work. And I think that me being able to take oversights at scale is completely expanding, the book of business and the offering, but also taking it to a global market. So there's a lot of benefits on both sides, but those challenges, I think, is what keeps us going, right? Because sometimes we do the same thing over and over again. We're like ready to graduate, and you just got to take those skills that got you to the graduation with you to the next thing. Most people like I don't want to do that anymore because I did that part of my life. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to do it? You spent all this time acquiring the skills. Just take it with you to the next venture.
Yeah, and evolve it. Just continue to evolve the foundation that you've built, which I absolutely love, man. So I want to ask you a question that I ask every single person. I have no idea if I asked you the last time you were on, if I asked you the first time, but it's a 2-part question. And the first part is, what is your definition of success? The second part is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Yeah. So I've answered this for you already. So I'll probably try to give a different one.
It'll be interesting to see if it is the same. So I'll have to go back and listen.
Yeah. So for me, my definition of success is to be able to walk in a room with the people that I love and I care about, and them understand that I showed up with the integrity and the values that I put forth to the world. And then I'm not acting out of alignment with those values. And I want to almost do right by people, so that when I'm gone, they will do right by my people. And I think to add a layer to what I talked about on the last 2 podcasts in this question is very simple. Justin Shank, my life is better with you in it. And therefore, I want to support you as best as I can, because my life is better with you in it. And I would like to be on the other end of that conversation, said the same thing. And how you show up matters. And I know for a fact that I'm comfortable telling the world that to you, to your face, because I know that my life is better with you in it. And I think oftentimes there's this kind of take on a regular basis, but what are you giving? And what I'm going to tell you is very, very blunt. My life is better with you in it. And if your life is better with me in it, then it's a plus, and we have a very good relationship. But it's when that delta and that gap isn't there, then it becomes a problem. I don't want that to be negative. And then your second question, which I'll have you repeat.
Yeah. What are 3 things you do every day to ensure that success?
Yeah. So there's 5, right? And it's, for me, these are my power 5. I've probably said this before because they haven't changed, because I'm constantly challenged to continue to do them. And that is, and I believe everybody should have a power 5, but for me, it's Read. I believe that you need to take in information that you have curated based upon where you are in your life and what's going on in the world. And the last thing you want to be doing is taking in other people's information. Just like when someone has a bad day and they just take that garbage pen of shit that they have and dump it on your desk, you don't want the news to bring that into your brain. Number two, you want to write. I believe there's a lot of power in taking your hand and your pen to paper and writing your thoughts before other people get involved in them. Number three is move. I believe that you need to move your body. The body is meant to move, and you got to get your brain moving. Writer's block comes from people not moving because you have nothing to attach this kind of creative ideas to. So you want to live, which is for me travel. I have to travel, but I need to move my body every day. I've had a lot of fun in my career. So, a bunch of surgeries. I've made a lot of orthopedic surgeons, some really, really nice houses, cars, and probably some nice vacations based on how my body's so beat up. But I need to move because it hurts when it doesn't move. Number four is eat. I forget to eat. It's just part of my personality. So I have to force myself to fuel my body because if not, I'll just kind of drag it out. And number five is pray, which is probably the most important one. I believe in a higher power, and I do believe that, that higher power has allowed me to live my higher purpose. And my life's mantra right now is live your telos, which is man's higher purpose. For a long time, my first mountain was to teach, and empower America's athletes by teaching life lessons through sport. And my higher purpose is actually to leverage that so that those people can live their higher purpose once they kind of fulfill their dreams athletically.
I love it, man. I love it. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, which means I've already asked you twice. We're going to ask a third time. But before we get there, how do people get a hold of you? How do they follow you? How do they start working with you? What's all the good stuff?
Yeah, so we're kind of in a place right now where I do hit kind of all demographics, which is cool. So if you want to have a direct contact with me, Instagram's definitely my medium of choice. It's the easiest way to kind of ping me. If I don't hit you, it's because I get 50 damn messages of bots and spam. But please reach out, and I will connect with you if I can. If I'm big timing you, it's either I'm getting completely buried with your message or it didn't go through. But I will reach out to you, and just be persistent is what I would recommend. It's something that you need to do if you want to be successful, is be persistent. So that's my expectation of someone that wants to reach out to me. But I will reach out to you. I will follow back up. So Instagram is probably the medium of choice. If you're an athlete, an executive, you're interested in anything that I do on the sports side or in the performance side, and human performance goes beyond sports. So a lot of it on the executive level, it's athletehq.com. If you're a small business and you want to build a brand, or you want to build, have your brand to market, and you want to build a website that is significantly more impressive than what you currently have, go to sitesatscale.com. And for like small businesses, we have a company division that's called Lightning Sites. It builds the quickest, most responsive, and coolest looking, small business sites pretty fast. So we'll have a website up to you within 15 days. And we have so many other things that we have to offer, whether it be content domination or services that have helped me learn my brand, right? You mentioned, seeing me on Gary Vee 6-7 years ago and like responding back to me, because in that time point you had already knew me. I got lucky, right? I was one of the lucky guys that, before he was well known, someone said, hey, do you want to meet? And it was a go-to meeting. Or like, hey, I'm an in-person guy and I just took a train to New York. And that meeting turned into, 2.5 hours and a pretty cool relationship for me to learn how to build my personal brand as a coach. And now I'm helping small businesses do that, across, right now, 1,000 different clients. So it's exciting. And that happened to be Gary Vaynerchuk, to think that was the mentor in the coaching part. Yeah, exactly. That became the mentor in the coaching world. It became super, super exciting. And, again, we're always looking for growth. And that's been the next stage of me and my growth. I mean, the people behind you, for those that are watching this on video, on that wall, some of them are no longer in the current place on that picture, and that's a good thing. And some of them are no longer in the current place in that picture, and that's probably not the best thing, because they're in different stages of their life, probably not as nice as those posters. And some of them are no longer with us. And when you realize that, I think it's a really important thing for you to reflect and say, hey, how do I want to show up? What do I want my movie poster to be? Because what story and what journey am I selling to the world?
Yeah. Yeah. And you bringing up the Gary Vee thing is so fascinating because, you talk about when you're paying attention to the world, right? You being super observant, and skills that I'm continuing to build is being super observant and understanding what's coming up, who's moving what, who's the good people versus the bad people. And you and I have both experienced the people who we thought were good have become bad. And, you kind of learn as you go. But people are like, how'd you get an Ed Milet on your podcast? How'd you get Trent Shelton on your podcast? The reality is they were on my podcast before you knew who they were.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was like right before that cusp, that break, right? Just like, although people knew who Gary Vee was, it was just the beginning for him where there was more opportunity to get time.
And I still think it's crazy. It's still the beginning for him right now.
Yeah, it is. He's going to continue.
But based on where he's going to go, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, it's just crazy, right? And so it's just about finding the time and finding your way in and building those relationships. Like, for instance, everybody knows who Vin Zhang is now, right? He teaches people how to speak. He's gone completely viral on Instagram. He was episode number 11 on my podcast. Nobody knew who he was. And then he coached me for free. Then he coached me for free for months. And I was like, whoa, okay, cool. Like, I'll learn from you. And then found out halfway through our coaching, he's like 5 years younger than me. He's an absolute legend in the space, but it was timing and understanding, like, oh, this is a person who wants to help. I want to help him too. What's that look like? Right. And you just build off of that. So anyway, I digress as I ramble on about this.
I don't think it's a digression, Justin. I think it's a reality that people need to understand that if they could spot talent, right? Like at the end of the day in sports, we have to be talent identifiers. If we could spot talent, but it affords us as the opportunity to get them when they're realistically able to work with us because they're attainable. It's, I think that when you create goals, everyone's like, hey, create SMART goals. And you want to be like, it's got to be realistic. I believe that you want to unrealistically set goals that are so far out there that it's going to motivate you. And the cool part is I want to connect with X person that is in this environment. Well, one of the ways that you could do that is that they're in a realistic state in their life to where you can connect with them, but that they're going to be in a position where you can't connect with them. Right now, if you were to pay him for coaching, for speaking, one-on-one, that bill would look very different than the bill that it was when you worked with him.
Yeah, it was free.
Exactly. Yeah, you spotted talent and you are able to work with a guy who's an underdog coming on the up and coming, and look at where he is now. And I mean, yeah, you have a wall of fame behind you, but you didn't just do the ceremony. You were part of their kind of victories to become in the wall of fame. That's the difference. You were part of their games, right? That led them to that point to where they had a Hall of Fame career. But prior, what happens is everyone's looking at the Hall of Fame wall and going, wow, that's cool. But what's actually cool is no, you were just one of the games.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was, Nick Santastasto's first podcast ever. Yeah. And now he regularly shares the stage with Tony Robbins on Tony Robbins' stage in front of 100,000 people. Like, that's wild.
And I also think that, being in that environment where I was there in those introductions and I was physically there to introduce you to certain people and you introduced me to certain people, knowing how that transpired, which are stories left for them to tell because they, showcase something different for a number of the people that were in those environments. It's interesting to me on, do you always so I will always recognize and I will always respect the person that brings me to the dance. So I appreciate being on here, multiple times, and I hope to continue it, moving forward. But someone who brought me to the dance, I always want to respect because they took a shot on me, right? Some people don't like certain brands. I'm a rock Nike. Nike gave me a shot. When I was first started coaching, it was, hey, it's Justin Kavanaugh. Hey, it's Coach Kavanaugh. Click. Hey, it's Coach Kavanaugh with Nike. Huh? And it got me in the room, right? And there's certain people in my life that believed in me before I had the credibility, right? Before I had this resume, they believed in me. And no matter what they do, I'm going to have their back in the future. And that's what's exciting. So, and it's also really exciting because sometimes they, you grow beyond them, right? And then they are like, they get to be a part of that. So I'm super proud of you. Like I said, my life is better with you in it. And I think a lot of people's lives are better with this message to the world too. So thank you for what you do.
No, man, thank you. And like I said, I want to wrap up with the same question. In your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Well, I would have said years ago, and maybe you interviewed me before that, which is when I fell through the roof 25 feet and broke my back, and it changed the way I look at it. But hands down, still to this day, is when my son was born. I think that if you would have looked back at my life before that, people would have said, "Yeah, Cav's the same. Yep, same guy, just a little different, in the sense of age and wisdom or whatever." But there's feelings that are un like unreachable. They're in there. They're in your body. They're in your soul. They're unreachable though until that child takes its breath, and then you realize what it is, and then you have to go do it, and it is a very different feeling. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm very lucky to be a father, and I'm inspired daily and to be challenged by him, because he's at the age now where he's definitely challenging me,
By the way,
not challenging, but challenging me.
I didn't raise young kids, but I could tell you as they get older, they get more difficult. Over the last 5 years, I've learned that. So, as they
Enjoy
continue,
it. I'm going to enjoy every moment of those difficult ventures, because that means that I need to grow. If there's anybody that I would want to put pressure on my ability to grow, for someone that is part of my DNA.
dude, I love it, man. I love it. So I just want to thank you wholeheartedly for seeing something in me before I saw it in myself, for recognizing who I am as a person and what I bring to the table, because not many people do that. And I think the last conversation, we're talking about some of the people on the wall and noticing something and seeing kind of where it may go. You have always stuck by my side through every single thing I've done, every business I've grown, every obstacle I've had to overcome. Like I probably, many of those obstacles I probably couldn't have overcome without you, man. So thank you so much for being you and continuing to pour into me and being my friend and showing up to my wedding and continuing to cheer me on as I continue to grow, dude. It's been a blessing being your friend. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. And it's been a lot of fun. And it's just going to be a lot more fun too, especially knowing that, again, I think that we're both very young when it comes to what we're trying to accomplish. We're both very young.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.